Okay, this needs to be covered because a recent Facebook thing. I was naming off all the different ones in one of my guildies. It's like, oh, okay. I need to explain some of these. It's the loot systems. And personally, I love Loot Council and the idea of it. It's democracy. Triumph, Triumvirate of Rome. I think it was like Holy Trinity. So you can do that, and I think that's how the guild's going. Next expansion is like the Holy Trinity, one tank, one healer, one DPS. That's the Holy Trinity of MMOs. Anyways, democracy. That's Loot Council. It's corruptible, just like every other loot system. Suicide Kings. Ugh, how do I explain? Suicide Kings is kind of there's a list. Like, okay, well, you get people can use a certain loot table. You have them on a list. Top list gets gear. Then he goes to the bottom of the list, so on and so forth. New players usually start off at the bottom of the list. So that way they don't just go in, get all the gear, and then leave immediately saying, I got all the gear, I'm going to a new raid. Like dumbasses. So that's Suicide King. In a nutshell, DKP. Thousands upon thousands of different ways to distribute DKP, and there are add-ons and websites to do so. And this is the most corrupt system ever. But it was developed with the thought of fairness in mind. And it started off as a good system. Okay, the idea of DKP was good. It's people fighting over items or whatever, fighting over points. It's more or less a credit system. Oh, you down this boss, you get 100 credit. And then it just goes to people DKP whoring, not spending any points, taking pieces that would otherwise be disenchanted, and then ending up with like unlimited DKP. And that's fine. Then you like solve this. Okay, DKP reset. That's fine for the people that are now in negative DKP for spending points that they don't have with no hope of recovery. But that's unfair to Jimmy No Life, who spends all this time on WoW, raiding, doing dungeons, whatever for the guild to get the DKP points. And it's like, oh, I lost my million DKP points, blah blah blah. DKP, horrible system. It could be corrupt, and the person handling the DKP, because someone has to write it down, could just help his friends out and be like, oh, you got these boots last week. That puts you below DKP with this other guy. I'm going to delete those boots from the website. And then there's always that one person that's keeping their own private list so they can tell when Jimmy No Life gets help from his friend Buttfuck McFuckerson. They're like, they did wrong, they cheated, blah, 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 blah. Meh. So, bad system. GDKP, Golden Dragon Kill Points. What is this? It's an auction, my friend, and it is the best system. Oh my god, it's so fun. Never used with the guild, though. If you're doing a GDKP run, have it 25 man, have it heroic, and have it with enough characters to at least carry the other people, because there's two ways you can do this, and there's two motivations, and I love it. You can either bring in an alt with a lot of money, because you can set like, I think the last one I was in, 10k gold was the buy-in to get through the door. Okay, you'd have to have 10k, then you get 5k back. The dude would hang on to 5k until the end of the run so you don't leave. Then you would bid increments. I think 2k was an increment at one point on the items that dropped from these bosses. So that's why you want 25 man to carry these alts that are going in for the gear. Well, why would you want to carry alts? Easy. You get a lot of money because at the end, we'll say 4 or 5 pieces of gear drop off of each boss in just, let's say a 10 boss raid. Okay, let's say you did MSV Heroic and then Terrace or whatever. You just get 10 bosses, at least 10 to 15k spent, 150k at least is in the pot. 10 people, or well, the 25 people or whatever. Actually, 10 to 15k per piece. So it's like 55, 60, 70, whatever k per boss. So you have close to $1 million gold spread between 25 players. What's that equal to? Like 40k each for that 10k buy-in. Yeah, that's fine because alts get their gear and the rest of you make money. Perfect motivation. The other system was EPGP. EPGP is pretty much effort point, guild point. So let's say, hey, down this boss, cool, you get 50 EP. You took a flask out of the guild bank to do it though, so that's minus 10 EP. So that's plus 10 GP, which EP minus GP, 50 minus 10 equals 40. So you have 40 EP left. Yeah, it's a really bad system. And just like DKP, corruptible. Also, GDKP is corruptible because at the end, if you need someone trusted to handle all that money and all that loot, because in the end, you get to the final boss, Heroic Garrosh, he drops the mount, somebody gives fucking Cheater McCheaterson like 2 million gold or whatever, mails him from alts and everything, and here's the guy, he's got all these gold cap characters, he logs off with the group. That's why you use everything in chat. Get logs, or get logs or get screwed. So we covered EPGP, DKP, GDKP, Suicide Kings, Loot Council. The other one is main spec, off spec roles, which is used by most pugs. I don't like it. I really don't. I mean, yeah, it's useful. It's useful and it's less abusive, but it's still abusive. It's still corruptible. And it's really, really fucking random. Especially in the case of, okay, well, the tank, you're saying, hey, this tank's dying a lot. He needs gear. This perfectly good piece of gear drops for him. Giant upgrade. This other person in the raid also gets an upgrade for it. So the tank effectively has to roll against someone who gets a slight upgrade on this piece of gear that's a giant upgrade for the tank. So the tank can lose it, and the tank does lose it, and then they still complain about the tank dying because they didn't give the tank the gear, so the tank isn't any more geared than he was the last time they tried it, and he kept dying, and they keep bitching at the tank, and the tank's like, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm leaving, goes off, joins another guild, raids more, gets more gear, does better, and like, oh, so on and so forth. So yeah, that hurts. That really does hurt. Especially if it's like one main spec role or whatever, like a limited amount of main spec roles. Dude, Siege of Orgrimmar has 14 bosses. Okay? 14 bosses, multiple pieces for each character can drop. Are you telling me that through that entire raid, only one piece per character is going to drop? I mean, what if, we'll say you get 3 main spec roles, okay? It's 7 bosses into Siege of Orgrimmar. This one dude's been pretty good with main spec roles. Hasn't really had to roll against anyone. Hasn't, like, one person he's been having to roll against. He won 2 pieces. The other guy won 3. He used all of his main spec rolls. 2 good pieces dropped that only those 2 can use. They all go to the one guy because he had his 1 main spec roll left, and then it's like, okay, well, you guys have to roll for that for off spec. But now that you're rolling for off spec, these 2 people are also eligible for it. So those 2 people can also roll off spec. But if you get someone who's like, well, that is a good main spec piece, but I don't really want to spend a main spec roll on it, so I'm going to roll and say it's for off spec. Like, yeah, I use my off spec, or the opposite can happen. They could roll saying it's a main spec roll, therefore no one else rolls against them. Then later on in the raid, hoping that everyone forgot what they said and be like, yeah, I've rolled for off spec. But wait, you got that helmet earlier. Yeah, that was my off spec roll. I thought that was your main spec roll. No, it's my off spec roll. I got that helmet from off spec. I can prove it. I have spreadsheets. Do you not know I have spreadsheets? So there's that. And honestly, Loot Council is just best because if it's corrupt, it's still 3 people. You know who's making these decisions. So it's fine. It can be between 3 and like 200 people. It doesn't matter. You still know who's making the decisions. Why they do it. Essentially, the Loot Council has to back up their decision. But they can also just say, yeah, you know what? Jimmy got this piece of gear because we want Jimmy to get it. We want Jimmy to get this gear. You don't know. Jimmy wants this gear. Jimmy gets what Jimmy wants. I don't care what you say, Billy. Because he's Jimmy. He's Jimmy Two Shoes. That's right, I said that. Loot systems, I hate the idea of them, especially going into Warlords of Draenor, where everyone shares loot with everyone else, but nah, it's loot. It's not the main part of the game. If you're playing the game for loot, you need to stop playing because you're probably fucking with other people's fun times.